sanctuary if you're ready tonight. I know that it's all so heavy. Won't you let me inside? 'Cause I could be your sanctuary.
What's up guys, hope everyone is doing well. In today's video I'm going to be going over some updates for Bitcoin and the New York Stock Exchange, and then afterwards I will just be touching on the 6 altcoins that I have been going over recently. But to go ahead and get it started here on this daily chart, quickly and briefly, just wanted to show this for the overall big picture because I'm just going to continually zoom in on this chart all the way down to the hour. Again, what is most important to be pointing out here is going to be our recent breakout right here of this very major macro resistance trend line that was enacted going all the way back to 69,000. Next major rejection happened right here at 48,000. But if we zoom in here on this 12-hour chart, what I want to specifically point out on this is ever since we have entered pretty much this first peak right here, these two peaks, main peaks, the second one breaking us out of this trend line finally, ever since then we've been seeing the MACD trade within what you could call a falling wedge or just a falling triangle. Price has been going up, but the MACD has been going downwards. We see the same thing here on this RSI as well, with it having more of a downwards trajectory. Same thing for the stock RSI as well. And what I'm trying to point out there is given that we have been seeing a bearish divergence right here as well with respect to the support up here, negative on the support line for the RSI, and then obviously same thing for all three of these indicators, RSI, stock RSI, and the MACD. But basically, given this very major breakout, again going back to this chart, the fact that I personally believe the next, at the very least, relief rally, but what I believe is the next bull run of over another 1000% move we will see in the coming about year and 8 months, year and 6 months or so. But going back to this chart once more, we are seeing deviations with respect to the price and the indicators hinting at a bullish, or my bad, not a bullish, but a hidden bullish divergence after getting bearish divergences. Coupling that with the fact that I think we are very likely within the very early onset of the next bull run. The price of Bitcoin does not have to heavily retrace in times like these. I mean, just going back to this chart right here, you can see, taking all this off, I mean, going all the way back to the previous bull run, which is what I believe we'll see something very similar to from March all the way to the $69,000 high, seeing a similar double top. If not that scenario, then we'll just see a single top, which would line up with going self-similarly in a fractal-like manner towards 64,000. This time it would probably be more around 200 to 250,000 for that first high. But you can see, I mean, we started this bull run, we didn't need to majorly retrace. I mean, right here was the first major retracement we got, and it really wasn't even that much in total. It was only 21%. I mean, that's nothing at all. And you can see going back to this pi cycle low again, which, I mean, we got these both printed right here. We don't need to see major retracement, given where we seem to be standing when it comes to the fact that we seem to be likely entering into the next bull market. I mean, you can see right here that it just looks similar. We just move up and we slowly taper off, wavering. Let's go down a little bit lower here. Just kind of seeing this almost flag-like wavering move towards relatively sideways, but with a slight upward slope, as you can see again once more right here. Again, we see that right here moving upwards, and even essentially the same thing right here as well. If we go all the way to where we are currently, again, you can kind of see this. We just see move upwards, and we kind of just diagonally trade upwards, go down a little bit, almost looks sideways. I mean, but again, I mean, we could just as likely see down more significant retest towards the downside. Again, as I mentioned, worst case scenario, I think we see just a massive bear trap and coming back down to test the previous lows right here, no lower than around $15.4 thousand. Outside of that, as I've been mentioning, 21 to 21.5 thousand would be the first area to be looking out for, which lines up with that middle of this band. And then if we start to significantly push below this white band right here, so we're around 19.8, and then especially below, lower than 19,000, outside of seeing some pretty crazy wicks to that previous range that I just mentioned, if we start to, with volume support and strength strong momentum towards the downside, start to go below this moving average right here. I forget which one it is, but which lines up with around essentially just approximately 19,000 on the dot, specifically 18.8 thousand. You can see that's what we got rejected right here. If I go up to the 48, yeah, I mean, you can see this is essentially the major, one of at least the major trend lines we get rejected at right here, going down from 48,000. That's the moving average across below after this double top to solidify, getting, is again, just weighed down by it, pointing out right there once more. But outside of that, hopefully, best case scenario, we see this RSI, or the stock RSI, since it is completely bottomed. Hopefully we see a quick rebound towards the upside. If it continues to move upwards from here and doesn't come back down and touch this lowermost bar, that could also be a form of just bullish deviation, given that its price is negative, and this would, if this continues upwards, that would be a good thing. And then right here, this is just really a big thing for me on this 12-hour chart, this MACD and the way it's been going towards the downside. I mean, for all I know, for all anyone knows, I mean, we could continue to go lower here, we could just go sideways for a period of time, and this falling wedge doesn't really actually, in the bigger picture of things, accurately apply here. But going down to this 4-hour chart, again, on this lower time frame, if we start to close below significantly 22.3 to 22,000, we'll straight towards the downside. That's likely going to initiate the 21 to 21.5 thousand, or going down to 19,000 with some wicks and whatnot. Hopefully no lower than that if we do. This 800 EMA, again, very important, moving average is at 20,000 right now. This 200 EMA is at 21.5 thousand, essentially, approximately, and those are pretty much finding nice confluence with this overall very macro, very pivotal trend line resistance, which now hopefully is going to be flipped into support. Worst, well, I guess best worst case scenario, we just come down and we test this around 21 to 20.9 thousand, and then bounce from there towards the upside. So maybe even seeing something like this, and then towards the upside. I mean, it could spend some time down here, maybe even go a little bit lower, down to like 20.5 thousand. But in general, finding support along this and then bouncing up, I believe, would be best case scenario. Maybe even so, and hopefully this 800 EMA would continue to move up even though as price goes down. Also lining up with this and finding support on it, maybe even down to, like I said, 20.2 to 20,000. If we take a look here at the RSI, assuming this RSI closes somewhere above this low right here and continues to move upwards, we'll see a bullish deviation there with the price being negative in terms of support. Same thing for the stock RSI, as you can see right here. Hopefully we'll continue to go upwards and straddle this midline to upper range, correlating with, as you can see back here, with this price, as you can see, moving towards the upside here. And then again, once more, I mean, we're still seeing, it's not on here drawn as well, but still essentially seeing some sort of just falling wedge pattern towards the downside, just consolidating. Hopefully at some point we will begin to actually break towards the upside with no significant breakdown towards the downside, again going lower than 19,000, lining up with that bear trap. But if we continue to go up from here, I mean, realistically, it's lining up with around 25, just about 24.8 thousand, 25,000, which again, obviously, it's very important when we go all the way. Actually, let's go to the daily. I mean, that is the most previous area of major resistance outside of right here at 20.8 thousand, which we've already, I mean, we found support right here and continued higher. Now we are at the 25,000 area, 25,000 area essentially. Obviously a little bit lower than that right now at 22.7, but that general area, 23, 22 to 25,000. So hopefully like this, with no major retracement, we'll see support within this, again, this trend line support right here. We'll bounce towards the upside, eventually break 25,000. And then again, in general, like I said, just head towards this 800 EMA right here as well, starting out at 28,000 up to around 33,000, no higher, 28 to 33,000, probably about the next range Bitcoin will see. Whether or not it gets more retracement from here or continues to go towards the upside more quickly than so. But if we go to this hour chart right here, again, we can just see overall, along with this turquoise highlight right here, we can see we are getting another bullish deviation towards the upside right here. As you can see, heading towards the upside, the RSI is, but we take it back to the price, it's continuing to go lower. We're getting our pink vector candle right here as well. We are also getting another a smaller time frame bullish divergence right here in this area with respect to the price right here being more severely negative when it comes to that. So hopefully this is just going to end up resulting in a retest of the lowest lows right here with this minor dip out of this overall kind of most major support right here back into again this range right here, correlating to the previous consolidation we saw, and then we'll actually bounce here as some sort of a scare tactic, not saying that it is one, but just kind of overextending a little bit lower than what we have been going within our most recent sideways, slightly upwards consolidation, just to try to obviously shake up the market a little bit. But actually, if I go back to, let's see, yeah, so here on this 12-hour chart, you can see again, RSI is falling nicely in this mid-range right here, which could be a great thing to see given it's basically kind of neutralizing price, in my opinion, which just means that it could, right now, it just has a 50-50 chance it could continue to break further, continue to break higher. Given the way this MACD looks and the stock RSI hopefully rebounding along with that, hopefully we will continue to move towards the upside. We're also getting this purple vector right here, which is nice to see, and these lows technically can consider it the lowest low we've set in this overall kind of broadening this consolidation we've been seeing so far, which could also furthermore hit more towards the bullish bias here for the price sentiment overall. But again, who knows what's going to happen, only time will end up telling. But here for an update on the New York Stock Exchange, given that obviously it's been going over, Bitcoin's been going down, stock market's seen a little bit of an upheaval outside of that. Again, I personally think not just because of what the charts look like, but also just where the world seems to be going right now in terms of the adoption of blockchain solutions. I think it's going to happen more rapidly than people are thinking. I think that decoupling is in its early stage of onsetting. I think it'll take a period of couple of years before things really start to set in, and this decoupling of blockchain solutions in its market, cryptocurrency, cryptographic placeholders, etc., from the traditional fiat markets in terms of fiat currency, once more paper currency, things along those lines. Again, we are continuing, just to reiterate it, we have been seeing this bearish divergence right here on the shorter time period. On the larger time frame, you can see overall this has been just slowly moving towards the downside. As you can see, I drew that absolutely terribly. I'm going to just use a trend line here, but in general the sentiment's been towards the downside. Price has obviously been towards the upside. I think this M pattern, as you can see here, will continue to carry out. But since we did get a bounce on this band, like I mentioned in the previous video, if we continue to go lower than that, obviously we're just going to continue to go lower, and it'll just be another milestone towards the bearish scenario. We did get support on it, which should have been honestly probably likely expected. I do think we'll continue to go lower here. If I actually go down, let's look at the hourly. Let's see what we're seeing here. Go down to the 15-minute. I did see right here on this 15-minute, you can see the slope right here for support was positive. Down here looking at this RSI, it was negative. This is again on the 50-minute, so lower time frame you go, less structural integrity in terms of validity that the price is going to hold. But nonetheless, again, I do think we will continue to see, and also you can see this is almost a borderline subliminal bearish divergence here. As you can see, the slope for the price in terms of support was far more positive than the, looking down at the RSI down here, it started to flatten out almost essentially, which also again could just be signifying the loss of strength there. So also according to this 30-minute chart, let's just go ahead and go up to the hourly actually. No, I'm going to go back to the 30-minute. So on this 30-minute right here, again for the New York Stock Exchange, if we start to significantly lose the grounding of 15.8, 15.7 thousand, likely will continue to go lower, then meet perhaps this trend line that we've broken out of again, which going back to the higher time frame here is just what lines up with, basically if we do continue to go down from here, what would be lining up this right here would be kind of like a bull trap essentially. But again, like I said, on that lower time frame, losing that price target right here on this 4 hour again correlating still with going down to 15.8, 15.7. Once that's significantly lost, then losing this trend line once more at around 15.4, which is essentially lining up with this band you can see here. So this white one, which is now flipped into black, you can see it's tightening up, which again to me is signifying something's probably going to be happening here soon. As you can probably tell, I think it's going to continue to go lower. But if we do continue to go higher, as I've been mentioning, if we head up into this blue box range right here and the continuous strength, etc., so on and so forth, to continue to go higher than pretty much 17,000, then likely this bearish outlook that I'm holding more predominantly right now is likely going to be invalidated. And then probably also I'd have to assume the same things about the decoupling that I mentioned. But outside of that, majorly seeing this New York Stock Exchange again once more on this 4-hour chart with respect to this trend line, which is this is the same trend line that I was pointing out earlier on Bitcoin. Let's see, was it okay on this chart right here when we got rejected here on this daily? We got rejected right here, pretty much is what lined up with 48,000. That's what we lost right here to pretty much continue, not to continue, but to really begin the onset of this overall bear market, which again that lines up with pretty much 15,000 on the dot, which is also just what lines up with this midline support of this overall M pattern that I'm pointing out right here. I mean, I do believe we'll probably likely go down towards around 12 to 11,000, roughly lining up, maybe even lower, seeing some wicks down around 11.8, 11.7, 12,000 on the dot, again with this 800 EMA, another very important, as I mentioned, moving average. Here for the quick updates on the altcoins. Most of them have seen some upwards upheavals recently along with Bitcoin. XYO starting to go down as with Bitcoin. Again, as I've been mentioning, talking about, we had this nice symmetrical triangle play out where it consolidated along the 800 EMA. It's broke towards the upside, essentially found support alongside the overall right here. As you can see, we broke towards the upside, had this major retest, found support on this 800 EMA, also found support on this what was resistance, broke out. We found support and we've just been going sideways ever since, finding support on these 800 EMA, 200 EMA each time. You can see that once this 200 EMA crossed over right here, that's when we started to get this most major move up. I was mentioning recently that starting to see price move above at 0.007, that's where we got rejected at. But likely I believe, assuming Bitcoin doesn't see a more major retracement and it does see a movement back towards the upside recently, breaks above 25,000, we'll see XYO continue to go towards the upside as well above 0.007, and then obviously really after that breaking about 0.0085, definitely up to 0.009 with strength, volume support, etc. Will then continue the up to half a penny to 2.5 penny, which lines up with the consolidation that Bitcoin built up from 32 to 48,000 with respect to a comparison in that regard. Here on the XYO to Bitcoin chart, essentially the same thing here. So I've been going over recently, except for seeing a falling wedge, broke out, found support again, first retest, been going sideways ever since. Price is broken up above this 200 EMA, so hopefully we'll maybe come back down at worst case scenario and test where all these moving averages right here essentially converging, continue to go higher, then break above this 800 EMA right here. And once we see that on this Bitcoin chart, this XYO to Bitcoin chart, that will likely then be further confirmation, especially if the XYO to USD chart's not looking too hot at the moment, that in general the price of XYO is a coin will continue to go higher towards the upside. And as I've been mentioning, we'll likely see, so the price for XYO come up to this range right here, which is going to be closer towards its all-time highs than XYO USD will be when it moves towards, like I said, half a penny to 2.5 pennies, which again is going to factor into XYO seeing strength over Bitcoin, which this then factors into why I think this coin's going to top out earlier than most of the market. The cards that I have linked at the beginning of this video, especially the first one, will have me more elaborately diving into my overall macro projections of Bitcoin and these altcoins that I'm going to be going over. But in general, I think about approximately 8, so give or take a month, give or take a month into this year of 2023, we'll see XYO start to top out. In general, like I did mention, it really just depends on when Bitcoin, where Bitcoin's at when this tops out. I mean, it could be as low as around $1.50 to $1.80, or outside of that $1.90 to as high as $3, maybe with a sweet spot around $2.30 to $2.50 or so. But in general, like I said, I mean, worst case scenario $1.50, best case scenario like like $3. Again, it just depends on when Bitcoin tops out, because that's gonna obviously it's gonna derive its value from, obviously. But here for Phantom, this one was seeing more, I would say, bullish momentum and upheaval towards the upside than most of the market. It's seen more of a major retracement, I'd have to say, recently. Still lining up with this fractal pattern right here with respect to the way that I view the market in terms of a macro view and a projection over time, with the upcoming bull market, I believe, having, according to the structural integrity, going all the way back to Bitcoin's inception in its first cycle, and the way that it's logarithmically decayed its price ever since then. This fractal pattern is nicely lining up. We've reached this kind of highest point, so we could likely just continue to trade sideways right here along this 800 EMA, finding support along this band right here. Maybe even finding support on this trend line once more, and then seeing this rise quicker. As you can see, this part right here, then towards the downside, is what's lining up with this right here. So like I said, we could come down and test this support line right here, as it was resistance right here. We went above it and then found support, so like we'll maybe find support again. Also, again, like I said, lining up with the moving average band. Then we'll see this bounce towards the upside, which is what would line up with this right here. Again, it's going to be self-similar. These fractal patterns are not meant to be taken as the precise movement, but again, it's just what self-similar means. Here for JASMY, on this 4-hour chart, we're getting a bearish divergence right here on the RSI and the stock RSI, not on the MACD. So here for JASMY, we could come down and test around 0.0066, 0.0065, which is what lines up with this 800 EMA right here, which we recently broke above, found support on right here, and then have made this pretty much double top that we're seeing, which also lines up with coming down and finding support along this moving average band, as I was mentioning with Ethereum. Perhaps we come down and find support along this trend line, which is similar to the, if I said Ethereum, I meant to say Phantom. I'm pretty sure I said Ethereum, but I meant to say Phantom. This black trend line that you see right here is pretty much essentially the same type of trend line that I just got done showing on Phantom right here. It came up, rejection, broke back above, support. Hopefully we'll find support once more. At worst case scenario, we come down around 0.0058, so just a little bit below 0.006. Worst case scenario, again, I'm just going to generally take right now that the market's not going to be making any newer low, absolute lows than what it's already set. Worst case scenario, we see JASMY come down to at lowest around 0.003635 up to 0.0045. So pretty much a range of about approximately 1/10 of a penny. We are just shy of the next range that I likely see price going towards again, this is just what lines up with previous consolidation. Like I mentioned with XYO, likening it back to 32 to 48,000 for Bitcoin. Doesn't mean we'll come up to this area and sit here for too long. Again, 0.0085 to 0.012, so just a little bit higher than a penny. We could completely blow straight through this. I'm not really sure, again, where this one's really going to top out at, so I'm not really going to touch on that here for JASMY. And so here for THETA, they're coming down and we are testing this trend line right here. This most recent pivotal trend line we could hopefully find support on. If we do break lower, likely probably just come down and test this moving average area again at around pretty much just approximately $1, give or take, maybe 5 cents or so. Also lining up with this 200 EMA as well, so likely hopefully we'll see this 200 EMA cross above the 800 EMA. Being a bullish sign, we'll get this flip back towards the upside. Worst case scenario, again, not setting any more lows than we've already set absolutely for the bear market across the cryptocurrency market spectrum. Around 95 cents to around 87, 88 cents here for THETA. And that's if Bitcoin were to see the test down to 19,000 with some quick wicks towards the downside. If we do see that bear trap like I've been mentioning, then we would likely come back down to these lowest lows we've already set. And some of these altcoins may even make new lower lows if that bear trap does happen, which again, like I just got done saying, I don't see that as most likely, but again, I mean, just to be reasonable here, it's just as likely as what I think is more likely. Obviously, I'm going to naturally, as a human being, give my bias throughout this video, but what should be taken away is that obviously anything goes, and I'm just saying what I think could possibly be more likely. But here for TRIAS, it's been behaving nicely recently. We've broken out of this upwards triangle-like range we've been trading in right here, as you can clearly see. So maybe we'll come down and find support along this uppermost, what was resistance could likely be flipped in support now, which if we do, it is going to nicely line up with this area right here, so we could come down and find support. Also with the moving average bands at around $2.50, give or take like maybe 2-3 cents or so. If we do continue to break lower, we could come down and meet this 200 EMA, which would then likely perhaps end up lining up with maybe even seeing some wicks down to this midline, kind of this median moving average, not moving average, but this dashed white trend line we've seen right here. If we do start to break below that, we could come down in alignment with this 800 EMA, so maybe like something like this or so. This is, imagine this being the EMA, the 800 EMA. We come down and we test around like $1.70 or so. Worst case scenario, again, probably lining up with Bitcoin going to 19,000 or so. And if the bear trap were to ensue, it likely would crash lower than $1.50. Again, either retesting the previous lowest lows or maybe even going lower. And again, for TRIAS, not really too sure where it's going to go overall in like the bigger picture, although again, lining up with previous price action, we are coming up and testing with this most recent top. Actually, if I take a look here at you can see how obviously right here the support line would be positive, but you can see it's tapering off almost a little bit when you obviously more clearly connect it to the support slope for the trend line that would be right here was far more positive than what I just got done showing in the RSI, which, as I said, is, you could think about it as a near bearish divergence. It's not actually a bearish divergence, but it's just obviously borderline. But and I know sometimes I use borderline and exaggerated at the same time, but we're going to separate borderline deviations here and exaggerated deviations. But outside of that, we also got rejection right along, I believe, this line right here. This is the 1.618. I'm actually kind of curious. I don't really remember which one it is. Okay, so it's the 0.5. We got rejected at that, just about right on the dot, which essentially is what lines up back here. We found support on it once, twice, then got rejected finally through it. So this is, in terms of an ascending price channel for the current price to find some sort of resistance set into consolidation. Great area to found it. Again, we just entered this area back here, which again generally is just what lines up with the 32 to 48,000 for Bitcoin. Also goes back to this previous intermediary low back here, going back to July of 2021. So likely we come up into that area, which ranged from our current prices at approximately $3 all the way up to $6.87. Could likely sit there for quite a period of time before TRIAS starts to attack these previous higher highs that this coin has set. But here for Dogecoin, seen a nice drop recently after we tested essentially 10 cents, approximately 10 cents about 3 times, getting a bearish divergence right here along these two highs right here. Right now we could come down and test this area right here along where the 800 EMA is, approximately where this 200 EMA is, and also this general trend line that I have right here, which, let's go ahead and zoom out here a little bit. Let's take it even further. This is essentially the ascending range, which lines up with the previous bear market build up, end of bear market and early moments of bull market build up that we saw right here leading into the parabolic action. You can see that we just got recently tested this, which I think is what's lining up with here, as you can see with these 3 bubbles drawing correlation. I believe we were likely just in general within this area right here. So we're kind of seeing this final kind of upwards thrust towards the upside. We'll see some retracement here and there, but hopefully, I mean, best case, I mean, we don't really need to go any lower than 8 cents just about at this point. If it starts to really break through 8 cents with some strength, volume support, etc., likely Bitcoin is seeing more of a heavy retracement towards that 19,000, and then maybe even worst case scenario, like I said, we get this what would be a very massive bear trap before we actually do see a genuine bull market reversal. But here for Dogecoin once more again, obviously, as we tested it essentially 3 times just recently, whenever we see Dogecoin start to break back above 10 cents, just about on the dot, with strength, etc. towards the upside, it's likely going to be the confirmation that itself is going to continue going higher, and Bitcoin is as well, and pretty much also all the altcoins that I've already been going over. After that, towards around, I'd have to say around 12 cents, up towards as high as 13, 14 cents would be the next range that Dogecoin would head to. And again, want some more, I do think, in terms of 3 ranges to give, because I like to give them in ranges for price targets. Best case scenario, this coin pushes $25 to $28 in general, $20 to $28. If lower, $10 to $12, and if lower, always bet on $1, and then outside of that, like $2 to $3. Again, still not sure. It just depends on how and when this one breaks out, whether or not it breaks out more towards like end of this month, like first week or so, second week of March, or if it breaks out more towards March, April this year. If earlier, then we could see this coin likely top out around August or so this year, kind of lining up with what I mentioned with XYO. If not, then we'd see it top out more towards the end of this year, when Bitcoin will be seeing its first top. Again, like I said, likely falling somewhere around 200 to 250,000. I'm thinking more like, just thinking about it more recently, I feel like 220 to 232,000 is likely where the first top will end up being, and then that double top will extend towards more like 240 to 250,000. But again, I think just in general, somewhere between 200 to 300,000 is where the next bull market high will be. Again, just to reiterate it, Dogecoin back here in November, leading into November 2021, did not make a significant higher high like Bitcoin did, going to 69,000, which would kind of, to me at this point, validate more so this turquoise fractal pattern you're seeing, where we'd see this major break above essentially 10 cents again, more towards around end of March of the current year of 2023, and again once more having the top be more towards October, November, December of this year. But outside of that, that was all that I wanted to touch on and go over in this update video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the content. Hopefully you're able to learn and take some things away from this video. Outside of that, everything being said, I hope you all have a blessed day.
Ooh, I'm regretting now, won't I see you forever, start to